Listening to Classic FM 97.3, and it's time for Business Half Hour. If you are just tuning in, yes, you can always be a part of the conversation as well. If you have questions, you can send them to our WhatsApp feed, 0909-217-2973. And Business Half Hour is brought to you in conjunction with Nairametrics. Bukola, I have in the studio with me, Wade, good morning.
Good morning, Bukola. It's great to be here.
Good to have you. And our guest this morning is Temitope Runsewe. He's Managing Director, Dutum Company, a construction and engineering company in Nigeria. Good morning, Tope. Good to have you.
Good morning, Bukola. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
How have you been?
Very well, very well. Good to see you.
Okay, so we're going to get started from the very beginning. Could you tell us a little about yourself? We know you're into construction and you're the managing director of Dutum Company.
Dutum. Yes, correct. Thank you very much. My name is Temitope Runsewe, the managing director of Dutum Company Ltd. And in that role, I'm responsible for making the business happen, making it profitable, and the day-to-day running of the organization. Before then, I studied and worked in the UK, and I've been in Dutum running the company now for the last 12 years. So that's a little background. I'm sure if you want to find out a little.
You've been running for the past 12 years.
Yes.
So is it like you took over from someone, or?
Yeah. All right. So so Dutum is a family business that was started by my dad in 1989. So the company itself is over 30 years old, and it started off in Ibadan, building petrol stations, and then later on building for state governments. And we've grown from there, from an infrastructure builder for governments to become a construction company that does varied activities, both in the private and public sector of the economy.
So what inspired that change from building petrol stations and working with governments into going into the private space, more of the private space than public space now?
All right. Okay. So I'll go into a bit of history. So my dad used to work as a civil engineer for Mobil. He used to build their petrol stations. And then after doing that for a few years, he figured, oh, if I could do it for Mobil, I could probably try and do one for myself. So that's how the company was set up, as a construction company, but the initial foray was into building our own petrol stations. And then, of course, after some visibility and traction was gained, it was now possible to go after government contracts. And that was what we did for probably the first 2 decades of the company's operations. And then when I joined the business about 12 years ago, obviously we're still doing a lot of government work, federal government work. But after a few years, I just thought there was more. There was definitely more. We redefined our mission and our focus to be able to serve more than just public sector. Of course, we still provide our services to the public sector and infrastructure, but now our portfolio is very diversified. And that is from a business perspective, in that, being 100% exposed to public sector is not good for anyone's business anywhere in the world, especially not in Nigeria right now. So for the purpose of diversification of our revenue and just for where we see the business going, being only focused on public sector was not going to get us there.
All right, your first degree was computer science, right?
Yeah, Yes.
And but you hadn't worked with a construction firm, had you?
No.
Before
No.
you decided to join the business. So what was it making that switch from tech to construction? And you're not the managing director. How do you navigate that?
Right. Okay. So my ending up in studying computer science was not particularly what was planned. So I had been admitted to, I had gained admission to University of Ibadan for civil engineering. I think that was 98, 99. Anyway, that year, the University of Ibadan was on strike for about a year. Just the week we went for, to register and all of that, there was a strike. So I went home and stayed home for 3 months, and then 3 months became 6 months. And then my dad goes, just look for a school. You can go somewhere outside of this country. So I found a school. At that point, I just wanted to go anywhere. I found a school in London, an American university, and they gave me a scholarship. They didn't have a civil engineering program. And I was like, whatever you have, I'm just going to take it. So that was how I ended up studying that. But right from when I was growing up, going with my dad to sites, I grew up doing this, watching him do it. It was always in me. And then after a while, I also transited from my computer science degree to taking courses in project management, short courses in construction management. And then just looking at this as a business, not, you don't have to be, you just need to know the pieces to mix together to produce the food, right? You don't have to be the one actually cooking it.
Okay.
So your business is in the construction and building industry sector.
Yes, correct.
So how would you say the sector is doing? How has it fared, and where do you see it going? Maybe in the next 3 to 5 years.
All right. Thank you for that. So we provide services principally in the building and construction sector, but also a lot to the housing sector. So if we look at housing as a sub area of where we focus on, there's a huge housing deficit in the country, and that has been put at several figures. I'm not going to banter the figures that have been going around, but typically you hear around people saying 17 million housing deficit and all of that. Those numbers have not been fully verified, but we know that we have a huge housing deficit in Nigeria. So from that perspective, our services are very, very vital. Of course, that deficit is skewed heavily towards low cost and affordable housing, which is an area that is presently very underserved. And that is on the housing side. So in the next 10 years and more, we see that our services will continue to be vital for the economy. Now, in the building and construction space itself, we provide construction services for infrastructure. There's no gainsaying that we have a huge gap in that area as well. We need more roads to build, more bridges, more infrastructure. So that area also, we're going to be busy. However, of course, that is heavily dependent on government funding. So, as the economy grows and develops, that sector is going to grow along with it. Now, the private sector construction business is very much tied to private funding, and this is heavily in Lagos. I think probably about 85% of that business is in Lagos, and Lagos almost runs without government interference, right? So people are taking positions, and for that purpose, people are building offices, building shopping malls, building hotels, building hospitals, building schools. So as long as that is going on, our sector is going to continue to be needed. And being a developing country, we need all these services.
So I go back to what you said about housing and all of that. How do you think, with the way things are, we can have that affordable housing for all? You schooled in England, by 18, you're moving out, you're getting your own space and all of that. You don't have to wait till you get one fantastic money to get a place. do you think we have that ability to get there, and how long would it take us for us to, because housing is very, very important.
So thank you for that question, Bukola. We have an obvious problem here, and it's going to need a very holistic approach. So from the provision of the housing itself, that is that is one side. That is, in our own parlance, we say there's a supply side and there's a demand side, right? We sit principally on the supply side, so we're happy to just be churning out the houses. However, we can't do that without taking into cognizance the demand side, which is who is going to buy these houses, how much can they afford, and what is the framework around their ability to buy the houses. And that goes into provision of mortgages and government interventions towards giving people subsidies and the ability to buy. However, one of the things that we've tried to do over the years is to find catchment groups of people. For example, we've tried to provide housing for the army, housing for police, housing for civil defense, catchment groups. Why? Because their pay is predictable to an extent, and then you can build specifically to their needs. However, the challenge is the take home of all of these groups sometimes makes it challenging to be able to even afford a mortgage, because a mortgage today is going 20%, 18% if you get it very cheap. So it is extremely expensive. So, I mean, these are the economic challenges of the country. But until those things are fixed, we're going to still continue to talk about this housing deficit. It's a lot of work, but it's doable.
So just to take you back from your earlier answer, where Bukola picked up the issue of the housing deficit, you mentioned that about 85% of the supply and probably the demand for infrastructure, housing in particular, is centered around Lagos. What do you think, as someone who's been in this industry for a long time, needs to be done towards ensuring that this demand can be increased across Nigeria? Because we really do need infrastructure development across the country. And if we're only focusing on Lagos, how do you create economic viability across Nigeria?
So, the attractiveness of Lagos is simply commercial, right? And is a case of demand and supply. So as of today, right, as a business person, you look at where am I likely to get the highest return for my investment? And because there's still a heavy gap in Lagos, you're likely to want to come to Lagos first. But it does not take away the fact that there's a demand in other areas of the country. However, what is their capacity to afford? If you were building somewhere, okay, I don't want to mention states, but yeah, you're building in Osun, or you're building all the way in Katsina or Zamfara, or in the east. What is the economic viability of what you're doing? So who is going to buy it? What can they afford? And so from a businessman's point of view, is going to look at what is the ability of the market to offtake what I'm going to bring into the market. So that is the reason why presently the heavy commercial capacity of Lagos is what is driving business this way. Both from housing, infrastructure, hospital, all those things are needed everywhere. But you have to look at the ability of the market to offtake what you're bringing into the market.
All right, with Dutum now, how has it been with Dutum? You said 30 years?
Yes.
Existence in 30 years. How have you managed to cope with how have you evolved with time and the different areas, different things happening, changes happening in the construction industry?
Well, the good thing is our evolution has almost been default, because obviously when you are able to transit from one generation to another, by default, the new generation already has its own ideas. They are born in a different time. The thinking is different, the approach is different, the focus is different. So by reason of that, we had that natural transition and the ability to evolve in that way. But having said that, as an organization and learning from history, we've understood the importance of being agile and nimble and being very current, being innovative, seeing what is going on in other climes and seeing how that can be adapted to our own environment in order for us to be able to stay ahead and remain fresh, remain innovative, remain creative. The most important thing for me is we don't ever want to be complacent and be caught on the back foot. So we're always challenging ourselves and asking the question, what more can we do? What else can we put out there? What are the opportunities that we're not seeing? And we continue to try to do that as an organization.
You know, being in a very competitive industry brings about so many challenges. And you've mentioned some of the services that you provide. So how do you think your services, in terms of how you provide them, sets you apart from competition? And in general, how does it affect the ecosystem of that industry? Because, like, you know, everywhere you go, there is adverts here and there of people in this business supplying one need or the other.
All right, thanks for that question. So one of the things that we have done, right, is in our sector, you need to pick your spots, right? So if you look at housing, right, there are people who their job should be financing housing. There are some who their job should be building, and while there are some who their job should be selling. But what you find in Nigeria is that everyone wants to do everything. One of the things that we have done to differentiate ourselves is we have focused on our core, which is the building. We just want to build, right? We want you to be able to go to sleep and say, oh, by so time, that structure will be up, and it is up. So from our own perspective, a few things that stand us out is, number one, we're extremely passionate about what we do. So even from the point of view of the people who bring into the organization, you must be passionate about this. You must be passionate about the result that you produce. You must look at the impact that we have. So that differentiates us. We are not just here to, you know, build houses. We look at the impact. We're always looking at how what we do can impact on the community beyond the product that we're putting out there. And so that means, how do we create jobs? How do we leave the community better than the way we met it? Those are the things that we focus on. And for organizations who value those things, they would come to people like us because they know that we're interested beyond money and interested beyond just producing the buildings to the impact of what our projects will do in the community and society at large.
And talking about projects, you know, a lot of times you hear about buildings collapsing and all of that. How have you as an organization managed that? Because we need to talk about standards, we need to talk about quality control. So in your industry, how is quality control being enforced so that we have less of such issues happening?
So this is a very fundamental question, and the basis of everything all boils down to the capacity of the people delivering the work. And that goes to how the capacity of your staff, what is the process by which you bring them in, because their training will determine what they will produce. So we need to go back to how our educational system, because it is the educational system that produces the professionals. What are they being trained and what are they learning in those organizations? So our part, one of the things that we do is we partner with some institutions to invite their students all the way from higher institution, to invite their students on tours of the site, to begin to orientate them, to begin to understand the processes. Because the key is about the staff. The key is those who are supervising the work. That is on our side. On the side of government and regulatory agencies, we have very, very strong regulatory agencies across the country, and they are getting better and better by the day in their supervisory and regulatory capacity, because there are many things that could cause a building to fail, and it starts right from how the building is designed. So from design all the way to our own part, which is the actual construction, the regulatory agencies are heavily involved, and their part cannot be overemphasized. So first of all, we need to get the training of the personnel right, and then continue to encourage our regulatory agencies to be up to the task.
Now, when you've spoken about having the right quality of people within your team, and you know, with construction, there are a lot of part-time people who come in and work on construction sites. How have you, as an organization, been able to set your standards towards ensuring that those who are selected to come in have the necessary basic skills for the things that they do, understand quality, like Nicola said, quality control, safety, health measures, and ensuring that transition, because you know it's from experience that people become better. So how have you been able to manage those who are not directly involved in the day-to-day activities of your business in terms of going into a site?
Right. Thanks for that. So one of the things that we do is we have a process for onboarding both skilled and unskilled staff on all our projects. So if you're coming in for the first time, there's a set of trainings that you undergo for a brief period of time outside of your core work. So if you're a mason, we expect that you have some basic level of understanding in that area. However, in other things like safety, quality control, we take that on as an organization. Every morning, there are safety talks on every single one of our sites before work commences. Safety talks by our health and safety officers that are stationed on every of our sites. And then also the site engineers go through the process, and every one of our sites also has a quality control engineer who takes pain of making sure things are done right, measuring the size of the materials, iron rods, making sure that the mix ratio is correct. All of that process is part of our own internal process, and we don't outsource quality to anybody. We take full responsibility for how quality is delivered. Even when we bring people from outside, we ensure they're trained, and that training is ongoing. And this is actually one of the things that we have planned for the near future, to actually spin this off into a proper construction academy where people can be trained hands-on and understanding the process beyond, you know, school knowledge and all of that, for all the kinds of myriads of people that could work on a construction site is in our plans for the next 1 or 2 years thereabout to set up an academy.
So what are your challenges though? What do you face? What are the challenges you face in this industry? You guys you've gone ahead, you're big now, you've overcome all the challenges.
No. The challenges are continuous. They don't go anywhere. Of course, the macroeconomic challenges of the country goes without saying. The FX challenges, you know, these are standard challenges that we're going through in this environment. We cannot take away the challenges of funding as well. Our organization is, our business or industry is heavily dependent on equipment and plants. And, you know, these need heavy capital investment. So from an organizational point of view, these are challenges that we have. How do you fund this, you know, in our climes where funding is not cheap, it's not easily accessible without having one mansion, big house, and all of that as collateral. So these are, you know, the typical challenges that we go through, but, you know, we just find ways around them. We have to keep it moving. We bootstrap where we can, we engage where we can, and, you know, we keep aiming for the sky.
Wow, Nicola, time is never a friend.
It's never a friend.
Okay, one last question from me, and Nicola will take the last bit. So you've said so much, you've been in this industry for the last 30 years, and so what are the expected developments and projections for your industry over the next 5-10 years? And how do you see that impact your business in the next decade?
You know, so like I mentioned earlier, you see, we're very, if the economy is doing well, construction will do well. And also the same way, when you see construction sites everywhere, is a sign that the economy is doing well, because when there's money and things are moving, people think about building. You want to build factories, you want to build schools, we need infrastructure, we need social amenities. So from our own point of view, our industry is going to keep being busy, right? It's going to keep being busy. Dutum Dutum is well placed to take advantage of the growth in the sector. We're well positioned. We know that the economy is going to improve over time. And as a result of that, construction activity, we need to reduce the housing deficit and provide social amenities. For that reason, the sector will keep growing, and Dutum is well placed to continue to be a part of that.
Okay, so let's talk about Dutum now. He's talked about the projections. This is 30 years. So another 10 years is 40 years. So are you projecting to be like the Nigerian version of Julius, Berger, ongoing, because you've taken over from your dad, or does he still, I don't think he comes to work any longer, but he just chips in here and there. Like
exactly.
Yeah. So
really
how do you intend to keep that going so it outlives you?
Yeah, right. So first of all, definitely one of the things that is driving us as an organization is we know that everything that the foreign companies have done and are doing are things that we have the capacity to do. Right. And so one of our driving forces is in that next 10 years, about a decade time, we want, when they are mentioning top construction companies in Nigeria, we must be mentioned in that top 5 or top 10. That is without doubt one of the things that is driving us, that Dutum will be in that lineup, showing people that Nigerians have the capacity to deliver quality, to sustain an organization, and to pass it on from generation to generation. So by that 10 years time, I would be looking to also be getting ready to transit, and because, that is, you want to be able to be in a position that while you're so strong, you can see the business is getting transited. Not that it's getting transited because you can't do it anymore, but because there's a process and you're ready to move on to something else, and then the business continues to grow. That is the vision that we have, and we know that we're going to get there.
And you're looking from a distance and you're happy that, oh, this is it.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So finally, what's that phrase that you wake up in the morning and, it just comes to you and say, this is what inspires me every day?
I'm not sure if there's any particular quote or whatever, but one thing that keeps me going, I tell myself, there are days when you wake up and you just don't want to do it. So I just tell myself, just do it. I love Nike's quote, just do it, just show up, there's something about showing up that I've learned over the years. Even when you're not sure of what you're going to meet, just show up every day. So Nike's, tagline does it for me all the time. Just do it, just show up. Keep showing up, and the rest of it to take care of itself.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We've been speaking with Temitope Runsewe. He is Managing Director, Dutum Company, and a construction and engineering company in Nigeria. We wish you all the best. So we're looking forward to the 10 years. We'll be taking your own backseat a bit as well, but everything's still growing.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.